All right, shall we start,
Let's
ladies and gentlemen, class,
Ladies
kids?
and gentlemen, Movies with Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning. The best. What is that from?
Debbie Reynolds from she was in that movie with oh my goodness.
It's from a movie?
Gene Kelly,
Oh, Singing in the Rain?
Singing in the Rain. That's what
Really?
it's from. Yep.
My dad used to sing that to me every morning when he woke me up.
Did too.
And
Really?
I
Singing
did
in
it.
the Rain.
I'm not a morning person. And so he'd come into my bedroom going, good.
It's not a
morning.
early afternoon
morning.
person. Not really an evening
She's
person.
just a cranky.
Was your dad one of those really kind of goofily, cheery guys? Good
Yes.
morning. Good. I
Yes.
can see him coming in and waking you up, and I can see the look on your face too.
Yep.
Oh, Dad.
No, it was much more grumpy than that, I'm sure. I was not a morning
And
person.
you have to deal with that in the morning.
Yes.
Tom,
And before bed.
I'm gonna pray for you. man.
Thank you. I need it. Thank you. I'm
You
Are
know-
you going to light a candle when you pray? Will
Mom,
you light a
hey,
candle?
Comments
Yeah.
about this one.
yes, she is.
Well, now the film for this week,
Yes.
this day, this month, this whatever it is, we do this thing here, this thing we do here,
Yeah.
is Paths of Glory, Stanley Kubrick. Did everyone read it? Raise your hand or nod.
I watched it. I didn't read
We
it.
all watched it.
Oh,
I
Wait, it
read
was a book
different.
too?
do you know who wrote the screenplay along with Stanley Kubrick?
No. I'm in
Jim
trouble.
Thompson. And do you know what Jim Thompson was called at one point?
What's that?
The Dime Store Dostoevsky.
Okay.
That's those pretty impressive credits, don't you think? The Dime Store Dostoevsky.
Absolutely.
What's a Dostoevsky?
He's
Dostoevsky is a Russian. Oh
Russian
God. Oh God.
yeah,
I should have shut
William
up,
knew
eh?
it.
yeah.
I sometimes forget where I am.
Listen. No, Mark,
William knew who he was.
give him a project that he should give you a report on him in 2 weeks. Have him tell you who Dostoevsky
2 pages
is.
double spaced.
2 pages, double space.
No, single spaced.
But no, I just want him to research it
I-
and then
that-
come back and educate the whole listening public.
I took a World War I history class, so I thought I was way ahead of the game on this movie, and out the gates I tripped.
You did?
I'm so glad it was the French army because as a veteran, I would have been very upset if that would have been Americans portrayed like that.
Or Germans.
Or, well,
Right. They banned this movie in
And you think the American hierarchy does not behave that way?
no, they don't. They may have back in World War One, but they don't now. Well, now they're all. Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
No, that was in. They didn't behave.
I
Like,
think they probably did things very similar during Vietnam. I mean,
you can
not
tell.
exactly the same. The class system isn't quite as defined in this country as it is there, but there's a class system. I mean, what percentage of the people, of the soldiers who went in the front lines, who were knee deep in mud, getting shot at, were black and Hispanic, and what were white? I mean, if you look at the numbers, yeah, the United States doesn't get off the hook. It's nice of you to want to let them off the hook. I mean, it shows you're a good citizen, and a lot of people would consider you a true patriot if you were willing to lie for your country. But
I
don't
served
lie for your
10
country.
years, and I didn't see any of that. In 10 years, I served in the military, active duty army. I didn't see any of that.
You saw no overt racism. You saw
Oh.
no overt sexism.
Well, yeah, I did see the sexism for sure. I didn't see any racism. Nope. Not
Really.
in it 77 to 87. No, they didn't put up with that, but I did see sexism. That's true. That's just
Yeah.
from my view.
That's what you saw. Well, all right.
But the
Well,
general
good.
officers in our command acted nothing like these two assholes. They were horrible human beings. They really were. It
These
really
guys in this movie.
irritated me.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the movie.
Oh yeah.
It's
No,
like,
no.
what the- like yeah, and they're like, oh, I care about my men, and then he dangles that extra star in front of him, and he jumps at it. It's like they were selfish. It was almost their own self-interest that they were interested. They didn't care about their people.
So I'd be
That-
curious how accurate. I mean, were these guys actually like that, or
Well, they're French, so probably.
They were dumb enough to take on the Germans.
Oh,
Come
they
on.
were afraid to come out of the bunker.
Because
yeah, they're
the-
French.
the
They
des-
ran away. They're French.
The
I'm sorry.
description of the movie says that it's loosely based on, real events.
Do you know how many people were quivering and not going over no man's land again, like back in the day?
Oh yeah,
It's
No,
insane.
that part was
Tom, you studied World War One. I believe it's true that the entire French army went on strike in the middle of World War One for a short period of time, for a month or 2 months,
Oh, come on, tell us
just
from
because
your-
so they could go home. They just left. They walked off the
they
job.
walked away. We saved their ass in 2 world wars. Don't get me started on France. But that
Yeah.
lieutenant, that asshole, he's gonna put that.
He's going to shoot everybody, right?
He's gonna put that guy to death because he knew what a real dick he was and how he killed that kid. He threw the freaking
Oh, that guy, yeah.
yeah. And that's the oldest lieutenant I've ever seen. That dude had to be in his 40s. Lieutenancy just out of college. Like it wasn't realistic. But you're gonna take and throw a grenade in the area and ended up killing his own man and runs away and leaves the other guy to die. What that kind of fucking piece of shit is that? God, I hated that guy.
Well, it could have been that all the lieutenants were exhausted and they were getting down to the old men in the civilization
Well,
having to serve.
that
So
may be
they
true.
portrayed this particular guy as just kind
He
of a
was-
drunken coward.
Yep, drunken coward.
Yeah.
A drunken coward, just what Lieutenant Dak or Colonel
felt like
Dak calls him. Right.
the movie gave us like 2 movies in one. You got the whole action scene, and then it went to the courtroom
The
drama.
courtroom. And then the execution.
Yeah.
What do you think of the execution scene?
I
We're
like
giving
that.
everything away.
You got to pinch the guy to make sure he's up. The guy with the
Yeah,
who's
don't
on
be
his
like-
deathbed.
You want his eyes open. That's right. Tie him to a stretcher, prop him up, pinch his cheeks so his eyes open. Just keep him alive long enough so we can kill him.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just horrible. It really is. And then I kept thinking at the last minute, somebody's going to save these guys. And nope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was hoping.
It was
Well,
after.
he tried. What's
Yeah,
his-
I think you're right. I probably was too. I thought when I watched it, I rewatched it last night, and the execution scene, I think, is the only time in all the movies I've watched that I've really actually viscerally felt how disgusting it is to kill another human being knowingly, willfully, violently.
And then the colonel told him, you go and offer them the blindfold. He
Right.
wanted him to be part of that because
Oh,
he
he
didn't
wanted it. The blood's on his hands. He wanted
Right.
it really on his, and then he wanted him to go and take the revolver after and which you're supposed to do, and they don't show it because they just saying it enough until go and put a bullet in everybody's head.
everybody's
Right.
head.
because he knew that guy was responsible. I mean,
Yeah,
he believed,
absolutely.
and so, but he couldn't prove it. He couldn't.
Right.
And then one guy, just the luck of the draw, he took the short straw. Boom, you're in there. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that happened though.
well, and I mean, I get what they're saying because I think they showed afterwards that for the lack of, let me be French, esprit de corps for the men to bring them together.
Right.
See, this execution
Mhm.
kind of helped with them. It honestly, it was like they sacrificed these 3 guys just to kind of.
No,
know-
you got that wrong. It was the beautiful song of the German siren.
Oh,
They
Jesus.
thought
Oh,
they captured a German
he's
girl,
so
but
pro-German.
we put her in there just to make you guys not want to fight. It was
What a
you took the
horrible-
bait.
What a horrible song.
You took the bait,
Tom's German.
and you're all paralyzed.
And Molly's German as well.
Yep. And if Molly ever sings, you're just gonna be paralyzed. She's got all German girls have that ability.
Well, now, about that scene, do you think did the French soldiers understand the words of that song, or what is it that why do they go quiet and listen?
They were singing along. I guess I thought that, music transcends so much.
Right.
And, if it was a familiar melody, they may have known the words in their language as well.
Right.
But you don't always have to even know what the words mean in a song to be touched by a
And
song.
I took it totally different.
She
I
didn't
thought
really want to sing either.
I thought that the French actually realized, wow, she's singing for her life, and we're making her do that. This is horrible.
Oh,
I
you
think-
took it that far? No kidding.
Like, wow, she
Yeah,
really.
I don't think they were capable of having that thought, but I think Kubrick might have been capable of having that thought. You know, that's his wife that sings that
No,
plays that
really?
part.
Oh,
Yeah.
didn't know that.
I mean, she's credited as Christina something, but her actual name is her name is Christina Kubrick. So I'm assuming it's his wife. Who's about the right age, and she's beautiful. Yeah, I think they stopped and listened because it's so heartfelt what she's actually singing. It's so sincere, and she is singing for her life, and that's why it's heartfelt.
All the emotion
What?
behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's singing to a whole room full of Frenchmen that were all just jeering at her. And
But it changed though. That
Eh.
mood in there changed when she started singing though.
well, you know what else changed too, though? What I thought was interesting looking back at that scene was the gentleman. Oh, who's the actor's name that played
Kirk
like the
Douglas?
main? Yeah,
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas. So
Yeah, Colonel Dak, right.
he had just come from, and he's all bitter about the whole turn of events and how it came
Right.
about. But he stopped and heard what was going on, and you
Right.
could see the change in like his mind as well. You can see it as he's sitting there listening, and then he's realizing that they are, kind of brought together and unified now from this, and he you can see that kind of.
There's like still hope for humanity.
Well,
or
no, I
something,
think he
kinda.
realized when the general told him, this will do the men good. A good execution will do the men good. And he stood out there, and I think he kind of realized, this is what they needed, as horrible as it was.
Oh,
Right,
I don't. Yeah, I
comment
don't
where-
think so. I think it's somewhere between what Molly was saying and what you were saying. I think what he stands out there and realizes is that there is hope for humanity because there is some respect for beauty,
Yeah.
and there is some respect for. I mean, and I don't just mean beauty in her, but the beauty of the sincerity and the depth of feeling that she sings with. I
Right.
think that's because that whole notion about this is good for the men, this execution will bring them together. Isn't that just another lie that the generals tell the soldiers? Go fight, win for country, for your families. Go out there and kill people, and it'll bring you together, and it'll unify us.
Well,
But isn't that just another lie? The only reason for the execution was to get the media, the press, and the eyes off of them, off of the generals, off of the way the war was really actually being prosecuted.
Well, it also lets the soldiers know, if you turn and run, this can happen to you.
Yes, we own you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I-
Did the Germans
I'm
do
not
that?
going over Nomad's
Did the
Land.
Germans do that?
What's
Did the
that?
Germans do that?
They didn't have to.
Why is that?
'Cause we just Schlieffen planned our way right to.
So Germany runs the world now?
No, nobody
Guess
ever
not.
stepped foot in Germany during World War One, by the way.
Right.
Never lost any ground.
They did get their ass kicked, though.
We didn't lose any ground. We're still standing.
But you know what, William? They got their ass kicked the worst by the Treaty of Versailles because the English and the French both went after them. They were so pissed at the Germans, they really buried them, and they created World War II.
Yep.
When it
Because of
was
that.
cheaper to burn money than pay an
And what
a
does that
heating
tell
bill.
you? The Germans never learn. It's about time for them to get out of hand again. Damn Germans.
No, we
Oh,
can,
don't even say that.
put up
I'm
being
kidding.
neighbors with the French for so long.
I lived in Germany. I was stationed there in the army. Great people, no. They don't want to talk about World War II at
Nah,
all.
nothing happened.
They
We
don't
were
want
on
to discuss
vacation.
it. They don't want to discuss it. I had a German girlfriend, and I was asking her about it, and she's like, I'm not German. I'm like, weren't you born in Germany? She goes, yes. I said, well, then you're German. She goes, no, my father is from Poland, and my mother's from Holland. I'm not a German citizen. Did you know that? She was born in Germany because both her parents were born in other countries. She had to carry a passport.
No
She was
kidding.
not a German citizen, even though she was born in Germany.
Weird.
Well, now, were you stationed there when the European Union was formed?
No, before.
Before, okay. Because now she doesn't have to carry a passport at all.
Right.
Let's rewind a little bit because we kind of
Yes.
jumped in. Thanks to William, we jumped in at 60 miles an hour.
Apologize.
And I want to come back to what William was saying about the movie, and see how that translates into something else. But the movie is Paths of Glory, directed by Stanley Kubrick, written by Jim Thompson and Stanley Kubrick, starring Kirk Douglas, and it's called, as I said once or twice or 12 times already, Paths of Glory. And it takes place during World War II, and the plot, loosely stated, is the French are losing ground, or they're not losing ground, nobody's losing ground. The war has been at a sort of a stasis, 100 yards this way, 100 yards that way, gained nothing. And there's a place called the Ant Hill, and the generals need a win to get the populace behind them. This was not a popular war. And so they assign one general, and then he assigns his subordinate general to take the anthill. And the guy, as Tom was pointing out earlier, says it's impossible to take the anthill. We've been sitting at the bottom of the anthill for 2 years, gaining no ground. It's very heavily fortified. It's impossible. And the other general, the Adolf Manjou character, who's brilliant in this movie, I think, in spite of the fact that he's a horrible human being, he dangles another star in front of him and bribes him essentially and he turns, and that whole opening scene between Manjou and I can't remember the actor's name or the character's name, but the other general, the guy who's with the big scar on his face, is a great scene. I love the way it's shot. The camera never stops moving. I think it's all one take. Anyway, the guy goes ahead and orders this assault on the anthill. Everybody knows it's futile. Everybody knows it's a suicide mission. They even say that the expectations, the casualty, and they're very, and William, you can correct me on this, but a lot of the military, the considerations that they take seem to be very straightforward and honest. Like we can give an estimate of what the loss, our casualties will be. And they go ahead and do it anyway. They expect 50% casualties, but they go ahead and do it anyway. And it doesn't work. One group of soldiers doesn't even get out of their own trenches. One group gets about 100 yards out. One group, 2 soldiers out of an entire, not battalion, but a platoon, make it, and I don't know how many that means were killed, make it almost to the German wire, but they don't make it all the way. And in order to cover their asses for this horrible defeat, the generals decide that they have to execute 3 men for cowardice. And they have to have a court-martial, but it's really what we call a kangaroo court. They just rush them right through. And 3 men are chosen, one at complete random, just by drawing straws. One because he is a social embarrassment, is what he says, and one because he pissed off, and one because he pissed off somebody by telling him the truth, and because he knows something about it. And they're executed in a long, drawn-out scene, and then it is revealed that the general that ordered the attack also ordered artillery on his own, shot on his own men to try to drive them out of the trenches. And William's probably right, and maybe American generals have never done that, but there's been a lot of deaths by friendly fire. A lot of deaths by friendly fire. And at the end, there's a song we were talking about before. But it's, to me, it's one of the most brilliant anti-war movies of all time, because it talks about how total the folly of war, the foolishness, and who really loses and who wins wars are the people who finance them and make money off of them, and the people who never go, the people who sit back in Washington or in Paris or whatever and go to parties and who loses are the schmucks in the trenches, who get shot at, who die, who get their minds traumatized and have PTSD for the rest of their lives, and wake up screaming in the middle of the night because they had to shoot a 12-year-old boy.
The colonel said there's no such thing as shell shock.
Yeah, there's no such thing as shell shock. That's right. So that's the movie Paths of Glory. I think considered by many to be a really great movie. My brother, who thinks the only great movies ever made were made by Sidney Lumet, he said it's the greatest movie ever made except those by Sidney Lumet. So after all Sidney Lumet movies, my brother Roy puts Paths of Glory. I think he might have been speaking hyperbolically because it's a little overstating it, but it's very tight. It's very precise. I think it's really an excellently well-made movie. And William's response, where he hated everybody in it that we started off with, implies to me, or I infer from his response, and William, I want you to tell me this now too, that you liked it because it created such a visceral response in you. Did you enjoy, not that you enjoyed watching the movie, but do you think that it's a good movie?
It's definitely a good movie, but it did draw a visceral reaction. It made me angry. And then, like I told you before, I'm happy that it wasn't American soldiers portrayed that way, that it was French. And it makes it easier to swallow. Because if that would have been American, I would have hated it. I really would have. I love the military. I love my country. And if I would have seen them portrayed like that, I would have been very upset.
Now, have you ever seen another Stanley Kubrick movie about the war in Vietnam called Full Metal Jacket?
Of course.
Yeah.
And does it make you angry?
No.
No?
I thought that was an amazing movie.
Full Metal Jacket? It's an amazing movie.
It's an amazing movie. And then also the characters I just loved them. I mean, even the drill sergeant, that guy, Arlie Ermy. I have an Arlie Ermy doll that you push it and it gives out, let me hear your war cry. It's just all that other nonsense. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
No kidding.
Now, shows some horrible things, but I don't know. For me, it's easy to swallow because you don't see the general officers or the people that are in charge behaving in that manner. Was it the general or the colonel where he had it said killer on his helmet, and he was telling him, why don't you join the team? And giving him a hard time. Who was the guy's name? Joker. Am I getting this mixed up with another?
Oh, in
Full Metal Jacket.
In Full Metal Jacket. I thought you were trying to, Joker. Who was that character?
Matthew Modine.
Matthew Modine. That's right. Yeah, it's a great movie, but okay, there's a point to be made though about what you say about to be made about you and about the way the Army runs. We really want our leaders. We don't want our leaders to be duplicitous, lying cheats. We don't.
Want integrity from your leaders, and you want to be.
We want that. We deeply, desperately want that. We need it.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's always true. I mean, I'd hate for you to go through life thinking that all American officers were good guys.
Well, of course not. Of course not. That's not true. Of course, that's not true. But I still like to believe that the people in my chain of command did what was best for all of us and made good decisions and had integrity and wouldn't send people out to die, just like you said. We'll lose 50% of them. It's just so cavalier the way that they said it. You know, in World War I, it might have been different that way, but it's a little bit different these days. Nowadays you're not really getting into a lot of this hand-to-hand combat. We have so much technology. You're not really, I don't know, man. You're not really coming into contact with people that bad like you would in World War I.
No, you can sit in an air-conditioned trailer eating McDonald's in Nevada and drop a drone rocket on a village in Iraq and kill a bunch of women and children,
You know,
and
I find
maybe
that,
a terrorist.
I find that a little offensive that you mentioned that, because McDonald's, that shit can kill you.
As you have just come from McDonald's.
Wolf
No.
and
That's right. Harry sits with the McDonald's cup right in front of him.
Your McDonald's coffee. Would you
I
have with
didn't see him eat his McDonald's though. Did he eat
No, I
it?
ate it in the car. I had one of those McGriddles. I know I'm taking years off my life. I had to wolf something down because I didn't eat anything this morning. A
McDonald's
McGriddle,
is a block and a half.
it's a sausage sandwich
You got it
between
all down.
two pancakes. I ate one McGriddle. I just wolfed it down while I was driving here.
Okay.
nailed it?
Couldn't wait.
Yeah,
You were eating while you were driving? That's not
Absolutely.
safe.
You can't
probably
wait.
not. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
That's all right.
There's a block and a half.
I
There's
don't
not much
drink
traffic
and drive.
in
Is it a
Grafton.
block and a half?
It's not far.
It's not a block and a half. It's more like a mile at least.
No.
It's at least a mile.
Not even.
It's
We'll
close.
track
I
it.
have a curiosity about this movie that I don't know if you know the answer to, Mark.
Okay, maybe I do. I'll
But
make something up.
But taking the anthill scene seemed like it really held up. Was that kind of like the first time you saw the Saving Private Ryan scene? Like people who saw it way back when it first came out? Was that cutting edge technology
I thought it was filmed very
and
well. for-
filming?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't really. There's not a lot of technology, special effects. Pretty much everything is done with lighting. I mean, that the whole anthill, and when they're in the field, I mean, I think it's done on a stage. I think it's just done really artfully. But in the trenches, now, I don't know. I haven't been to Germany. I haven't been to France. But I believe that those trenches from World War I are still there, and I think they might have shot them in those trenches, shot some of those scenes in those trenches. There's a lot that is shot in a practical location, a real location, and then there's a lot that's shot on a stage.
Yeah.
Anything where it's really dark, it's on a stage.
It looked very realistic, and it really brought you into, you know, what they were experiencing and going through, and just how horrible it was.
What
There's
it looks like.
Yeah.
No, and some of the people in the trench, as the colonel's walking through, and it's long, and he's taking a long walk,
When he was asking
Yeah.
if they were ready to kill some Germans today.
and then you see some of the soldiers are chewing gum, like, yeah, just another day, and some of them are like freaked out. I mean, you just runs the whole gambit of
well,
emotions.
the one guy where he says there's no such thing as shell shock.
Right.
That guy is totally space cadet. He's gone.
Got the shit slapped out of him too by a French guy.
But there, I mean, that's I didn't serve. You served, I know. But it seems to me that the other thing people tend to forget about soldiers is that they're all individual people, and they respond and react to things in individual, personal ways. They don't all react the same way. The generals would like them to.
The job of the army, though, is to tear you down.
to tear
from-
you down. That's what basic training is for, to tear you down
so
and
you
then
don't
build
have
you up as a
individual-
cohesive unit. That's
Yeah,
the,
the Marines are quite clear about Paris Island, about the reason they shave their head is to strip you of your identity, because there's a very strong psychological thing that happens. In the Bible, she cuts, Delilah cuts Samson's hair
Yeah.
off. And
Yeah, when they've got the same haircut.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, so the idea is to strip you down, just like acting school, is to strip you down, break you down, and remake you in our image. None of it works. I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the guy's grandchildren.
I'm just really curious how accurate this movie was. It said it was loosely based on real events, or how, you know, how that played out and how these people actually were. And by the end of the movie, I just kept saying, I can see why they banned this, because as we were looking up the movie initially, I stumbled on an article that it was banned in Sweden and
It was Switzerland. and
Switzerland and
Switzerland?
France.
You mean the
Switzerland, that's
people
what I
that
meant.
are all, we're not getting involved, Switzerland?
They banned it on France's behalf.
Right. But
did?
because
Oh, really?
it does, because
I
of
didn't know
it
that.
portrays their, you know, their army and their
Pissed the
people
French
and their
off.
I mean, it portrays them in a very bad light, whether it's
Right.
you
No,
know,
it's
but-
not a good join up poster. It's not a good thing. Come join the French army.
yeah.
It's not a good advertisement at all.
Have they gotten any better, the French?
They
As far as
were
soldiers?
right before World War One. They were the 900-pound gorilla of the globe. They were really
Then what happened? Eating all that
trench
French food?
warfare kind of messed everything up.
They lost a lot of people. I don't know what the numbers were. Tom may know, but the numbers of dead Frenchmen and the numbers of dead Englishmen who were in those trenches too, some of the time, and Belgians.
Yeah, mostly took place in Belgium.
Yeah, and the number of people that came home crippled, lost lots of arms and legs in that war, I think.
Or their own gas poisoning.
Yeah,
Right.
must-
Yeah, the Germans used mustard gas. No, it was a war to end all wars, wasn't it?
That's what it was supposed to be.
Is
That
any-
didn't happen.
Around from World War One, that'd be everybody's
No,
dead,
no,
huh?
they're done. But they got Franz Haber. This is a good philosophical question. The guy who turned mustard gas into chlorine gas, he's basically, they use that technology to create fertilizer. And
Oh.
they said that his work with the gas probably like 1,000 times increased food production. So was it worth having the war for all the people it fed afterwards, kind of thing?
Oh, the
It's a-
technology that
The
you
technology, yeah.
you come up with. Well,
It's a good question. Lots and lots of the technology that makes it, these screens that we're looking on and this whole internet thing that allows us to look stuff up was basically created, if I'm not, except for the part that was created by Al Gore, was created as a technology for the war machine, for the army, for the military. And we use it. Yeah.
I know. So they count the deaths, but he's still feeding people. You know, did it outweigh
Right.
his Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1918?
right. How many people did he kill versus how many people
Did he say?
he saved?
Oh, he was not a good man. His wife committed suicide. He was all in. It was, but they tried to. The Germans made him famous because after World War II, because Fritz Haber was actually Jewish, and they're like, we need a Jewish German hero now. So then he got famous way after World War II.
But before we completely malign the French for having such horrible generals during World War I and fighting it at such a terrible war and continuing to fight such a terrible war, we also have to remember that, did we watch Army of Shadows?
I don't
Nope.
think so.
We didn't. I think I wanted to, but we didn't do it. It's a Jean-Pierre Melville movie about the French resistance during World War II. And the United States and England and the Allies probably would not have been as successful at winning the war, World War II, if it hadn't been for the French resistance constantly biting at the heels of the Germans
Yeah.
and the Vichy French. So there's some, all Frenchmen are not schlubs and idiots like Adolphe Menjou and I wish
Or
I could
like I
remember.
portrayed them as well.
Yeah.
But like I was in Germany, and that's the way the Germans are still like that with the French. You know, my German girlfriend told me I don't like French people. I'm like, why not? She said because they every time hold the nose high and they smell bad. I
They
said, well,
smell
maybe-
bad. Everybody always says they smell
I
bad.
said maybe that's why they hold the nose high from the smell.
But doesn't the hot air rise? You get more of it if you've got your nose up higher. I don't. I mean, there's two sides to every story. This movie just portrayed like some of the worst, facets of, human.
Well, it's hard for me personally to think of anything that there were any good facets about war.
Right.
And most people will say there isn't. I mean, all the generals say we're fighting for peace. We're not fighting for war. We have to kill people to save people. That seems like a specious argument to me. But
It's senseless. I don't.
you're
know.
right. But it does pull the screen away the disguise away of war being a very the notion that war is a positive, the war saves us, that we need war, we have to fight wars all the time. That it pulls the wool. I don't know. I feel like it really exposes that in a really nice way. That there's corrupt where we most want there to be purity and honesty and forthrightness is where there's the worst corruption.
Yeah, those general officers were horrible. They should have been executed. That's who should have been executed.
Well,
Right.
right. I don't think anyone that watched that movie would disagree with you.
And then the guy with the scar on his face, I wonder how that happened. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
like-
know that's never brought up, but he was of that generation wwhere they fought with sabers.
Well,
No, he was from the generation where he had to fight a coyote for his wife's afterbirth. It was
What?
1850.
Wait, what?
What?
he's
Fighting
saying that the dude
coyotes?
was old.
The dude
French
was old.
coyotes?
Well, he's an old guy, so it probably happened in the early 1800s.
So they were. He did say that guy with the scar several times on several occasions that he had been a soldier, that he had served. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
guessing that's where they were inferring
That's the
that
war
he had
at
gotten that.
1848.
Yeah.
Well, it was still the case, as
Wait,
I think William might have alluded to, that in this time, during World War I, the military was in a transition where it had always been the elite, the moneyed class, the royalty, the upper classes became the generals and ran things, and
Yeah.
and the people, poor people, didn't like. Colin Powell could never risen to be a 5-star general in the French army of World
My
War
point
II.
was I was trying to make a point on time with the guy with the scar on his face probably fought next to Napoleon. That's how long ago it was.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and that's
that's-
hard to,
You know what I
fathom.
found interesting about this movie too was the stark contrast between the scenes where they're in the trenches and they're
Right.
battling and whatever, to just now they're in this like palace, this grand like palace that
All
they were
around
doing.
it.
Like,
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
a party going
it
on.
had like
Yeah,
marble.
a party with people dancing and
Dancing,
everybody
yeah.
smiling and food.
It
Yeah.
was
Sending out to die.
it was an amazing looking, like just beautiful palace with the
Yeah.
you
No,
you
and,
go-
and they call, and he very deliberately calls attention to it when the general, the Adolf Manjou character, comes to tell the guy with the scar, whose name I can't remember, that he has to take the anthill. One of the first things he says is, "I really like what you've done with this place."
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, it's really pretty much the way we found it." So they just moved into somebody's house and took it over, but a really grand palace. And
Mhm.
that's where they live. And the men, of course, we see where they live, sort of in huts in the ground, mud huts in the
Yeah.
ground.
Sleep standing up.
Right. The
Knees
food for
walking
powder, as Falstaff calls them,
Oh,
the
they sleep.
soldiers.
upside down.
Upside down.
Huh, what?
You sleep upside down, don't you?
I mean, sometimes
In your bat
it's
cave?
comfortable.
Oh, you sleep head to toe to feet? Because that's how Molly Bloom and Leopold Bloom sleep in Ulysses.
Really?
Did you
No,
know
I
that?
Well,
They're
she
just-
hangs upside down and she sleeps that way, like a bat.
Like
Wait,
a
so
bat.
they
She's a
sleep with their-
vampire.
She's a vampire.
If they both sleep with their heads at the foot of the bed, aren't they just at the head of the bed anyway? Like,
Yes, but they sleep foot to toe.
oh, Tom's parents do that
How do you know that?
because
I read Ulysses.
his mom
it's in-
told me.
What?
So how does she know
She
how
hates
Tom's
when my-
parents sleep?
Because she hates when my dad's farts because the anus is pointed right at her face.
She mentioned it someday, and I thought that was the weirdest thing. She's like, "Yeah,
My
he
dad
sleeps with his
sleeps-
feet like in my face," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds awful."
Oh, they do sleep like, no kidding.
Yeah.
Parents do.
You should get him a
Have they
couple-
ever explained to you why?
According to my dad, it's because my mom snores so loud. He's got to try to get the fire away from him as possible.
Well, she's got the CPAP machine. You can still hear her snoring through the machine.
Yeah, she's got a Darth
Oh,
Vader
the
helmet.
machine's
now.
probably loud in its own.
Did she bring it to Vegas with her?
Yeah,
Nice.
She did.
So which one of your parents gets their head at the actual head of the bed and which
that's
one?
my mom.
Your mom, and so your dad has to switch around. Okay.
Yep.
He chooses to.
At the foot of her bed, like a dog.
You froze. What?
He's a good hound.
He's a good hound. She scratches him behind the ear. He kicks his leg. All right, let's give it.
Yeah, let's rate it.
Because
Yeah, let's rank it, shall we? Does anybody else have anything else they want to say about it?
Oh, I liked it.
Thank you for recommending it. I mean,
Mhm.
I would never have thought to watch a movie like that, and now that I'm glad that I did, so I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it slips. It's a movie that slips through the cracks, I think, a lot of times, and it may be because it is so really sort of profoundly, I think, anti-war, anti-army, anything that takes your freedom away from you.
Right.
And it's so profoundly and beautifully executed. I mean, there's a flaw in it. What I thought was a flaw, but it isn't. There's a scene where they're cutting back and forth between Kirk Douglas. It's a medium shot of Kirk Douglas, and he's outside in the field. Oh, I think he's watching the execution, and it's just him, and he's turning his head like this. And then they cut back to the field, to the largest, and it feels to me like it's wrong. But then as they kept cutting back, I think, no, this is really right, because he's standing there like a chicken who's about to have his head cut off. Douglas is, with his head just sort of like a bobblehead going back and forth. And it's really, I don't know, it communicates an emotion to me that I'm not used to. Just the bewilderment of being in that situation. So I think it may be completely unflawed, but it is overlooked, and I don't know why it's overlooked, except for the fact that it's so adamant about what it has to say. Anyway, so do we want to rate it?
Yes,
Who wants Molly? I think Molly should start.
Molly should go first.
I think I should start.
And explain yourself.
Oh, well, I think if we're rating it in terms of like, is this a movie that like everyone should go out and see?
You can choose that criteria. Yeah, sure, that's all right.
I mean, I think I'd probably give it a 5, because it
should be seen.
It should be seen, and the perspective, and just the
Even though I mean, I'm going to interpret your hesitation as being, it's a 5. Everybody should see it, even though you're asking people to do something that's going to be painful,
right,
or difficult.
Yeah,
right. It's not Elf.
Right. It's not a feel good, like, yeah.
Right.
But just purely.
Good. But it's a good movie. It's a movie that needs to be seen, needs to be watched. Good. I like that. Okay.
I'll go. I'm gonna give it a 5. I watched it from the German army perspective, and I'm like, you see, this is why we got to deal with France like this. Now you guys understand. You be neighbors with them. So
you should now watch what's the Grand Illusion. Have you seen Grand Illusion? I mentioned it when we talked about
get beat up in that movie
Germans
pretty bad.
Get what they got coming.
Oh yeah, because I'm not used to the Germans being the bad guys in every movie.
Well, they're not. It's another World War I movie with Erich von Stroheim, and it gives you the sense of this sort of transition from a feudal world to a modern world that was happening right through World War I, where the upper classes were the officers and the fighting men were barbers and shopkeepers. It all takes place in a German prison camp, a Prussian prison camp, and Frenchmen and Englishmen are in the prison camp. There's no fighting except amongst themselves. I think there's an escape, but it's just you get a good vision of the class structure, and again you get a notion, not as visceral as this movie, but you get a notion of the futility of war. So a 5, good. Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
And I'm glad you liked it. You saw it. William?
I would.
Or
give
do you
it-
have more to say, Tom?
No, I'm good. It's all pretty much been said. But
Before I give my ranking, I would like you were talking about Sidney Lumet earlier.
Yeah,
Brother is a big fan. Did he do Dog Day Afternoon?
yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was a good one. Did y'all see
That's a
Dog
great
Day?
one.
Oh, maybe we should talk about that one.
We could talk about that one. We could talk about it in a more obscure Sidney Lumet movie that I think is really, really good, called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, with Philip Seymour Hoffman and
Oh,
Ethan
yes,
Hawke.
I saw that one. Yes, that's a great movie.
It's a great movie,
Yep.
as is The Verdict. But yeah, let's watch Dog Day Afternoon, because we should see what Pacino was like when he started and get an idea of what John Cazale, who people who watch movies and
Amazing.
who love Meryl
Yeah.
Streep know about
Sal.
John Cazale. Huh?
Sal. His character was Sal.
Sal, right, exactly.
They tell him,
Yeah.
Sal, you can go to any country in the world. Where do you want to go? And he said, Wyoming.
That's right.
I
The
thought
guy
Pacino
who would
was,
be the most out at sea in Wyoming.
but yeah, Pacino was amazing, and that's based off of a true
Hey,
story as well.
You should save it.
Right.
Okay, then we'll do it. So I'm gonna say 4.75, and the only reason why I'm taking 25 off, it's because I thought a huge injustice was done for those innocent guys being executed, and
That's the movie we wanted to show.
I know, and it was offensive to me. Like you'd think that. I thought he would save them. I don't know. For some reason, I thought he would be able to save those three guys, man.
I think
That's so
maybe
real.
your new nickname is going to be Pollyanna.
Shit.
It offended me. I
No.
didn't like it.
Yeah. It offended me. It's wrong. I don't like the world the way it is.
so Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, he's out. I think God did that a couple years ago.
Aw.
All right, I give it a 5, definitely. It's probably on my top 100 list or top 25 list, even maybe. I don't know. I never do those lists, but I think it's a brilliant, really, truly brilliantly executed story, film, thesis about men at war, and all men, not just the men in the trenches who fight for their buddy next door, who are all heroes, but also the men who command them to go out and be food for powder, as Falstaff says, and die for their country.
Mhm.
It's a really brilliant
Yeah, the scene that
story
got
about
me was
that.
the undesirable, weird-looking dude.
Yeah,
When his like only friend was, I don't know, one rank above him and had to come and get him and tell him to clean himself up and get ready to be executed like a man. That's the only thing you can control now. I was like,
Yeah.
damn,
Well,
kill your friend.
Yeah.
the execution scene is the hardest for me to watch in that because of him, because of Tim Curry. I think it's just a phenomenal performance. It's like groundbreaking. I don't think nobody else in the film is doing the kind of acting that's that close to the bone and close to the skin at the same time as he does when he's crying. That long walk that he does, and that long
And the
crying.
priest is like, "Come on, man, get it together." Like,
Yeah, I know.
you're not
the
being
priest-
executed, man.
Yeah,
he's just
Yeah.
hanging on the priest. The scene that hit me too was there was a scene in there where there were a couple soldiers that were talking about what way they would prefer to die or what way they didn't want
the machine
to.
gun or the bayonet.
Yeah, they were saying they didn't want
Oh
the bayonet,
yeah,
scared of the bayonet and the grenade the most, I think.
right. Something
just
quick
because-
and sudden.
Right. If I could, if I could choose,
That's
it
poor
wouldn't be-
leadership if your soldiers are
Just
talking about
you think
that.
about the anticipation of waiting for that shot.
right.
Oh, it's just awful.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And not knowing, and knowing the people that are holding the rifles at the other end. I mean, the movie doesn't ever give us a shot of their faces, but you've seen them in the mess hall. You've seen them walking around.
Yeah, I wouldn't take that fixed bayonet command very well. Like fixed bayonets, do they have bullets? No, they got plenty. We don't. What do you mean? I'm not going
That's
over
right.
there.
We're running out of bullets.
Fix the bayonet. Well, how's their bullet situation? They're
Were
good.
there, did they fix bayonets? Did they have bayonets on the weapons in World War II?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think so.
Could be.
bayonets and shovels.
Yeah.
Just
But
pounding
it's
some-
good. And then and next 2 weeks from now, let's do Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog
Sidney
Day
Lumet, Al Pacino.
Okay.
That's a
Right.
movie in color. Not a contemporary movie, but it's a movie in color. That's good.
What when you were talking about war flicks, the Vietnam flick that De Niro was in with
Deer Hunter.
the Deer Hunter. Have you guys
Right.
ever seen that?
Yeah.
That is crazy. But like John Cassell was in that. I mean, like he was in some really good movies before, cancer took him. But like that guy was in epic movies.
Yeah.
Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter, The Godfathers.
Right. Everybody who worked with him and who knew him at the time, and I didn't know him, but I was around town in New York the same time he was around, always said that he's the best of all of them, the best actor. But that's actors talking, because actors know what they want to do, and they want to sort of be able to be inside a character as much as they possibly can, and have the character be inside them, and just disappear in it without. And he didn't. And Meryl Streep lived with him all the time he was dying, and took care of him and loved him. And it's interesting the work that he did compared to the work she does. She's so technical, and accents and everything like that. But Cazale is just really visceral, and he plays weak men.
Well, I
He
also
always
heard
plays weak men.
that they were gonna cut him out of they were gonna throw him out of the Deer Hunter because he was sick, and she said if he got cut out, she would pull out and not do the
Right.
movie either. So good for her.
Yeah, no, she stood up for him
Character, yeah.
really well. Yeah, that's a good movie, though. There's lots of stuff to talk about. I mean, it's somehow is weakened by the fact that the Russian roulette thing, that it sort of pivots around. I'm told that was not a real thing. That was something that he made up.
I
Now, I
think
know
that's where you saw the transition of Christopher Walken from this regular kind of guy into the psycho we know and love. Like in that movie is where he became that
Where
crazy.
he became that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie that works. I'm just not sure that it's a movie that's right, if there is such a thing. Anyway, all right. So Dog Day Afternoon next time.
Yep.